Hello, this video we're going to do some good old dimensional analysis. So this is from your math practice packet, number 7 to be exact. We'll do a couple of examples from this question. We're just using dimensional analysis to convert from one unit or one set of units to another. And to do dimensional analysis, you have these notes that just kind of go through the steps of what we'll be doing. It's always important to think about what the problem is asking you, because that will help guide your setup to figure out which units need to go where. You can use the numbers that are given to you, and if you need to use conversion factors, we have a sheet of conversion factors that you'll be given on a test and that are on your math practice packet. Then we'll set up our dimensional analysis in order to cancel the units. And then once we have it all set up, we'll type it into our calculator by multiplying the top numbers, dividing the bottom numbers, and then rounding our answer to match the number of significant figures that were in the question. Okay, so we'll go through a few examples here, starting with 7b. Okay, so the problem is asking us to convert from miles to kilometers. So we want our answer to be in kilometers, and the number that they give us is 2.30 miles. So it would be a good idea to start with that number, because we know that miles is really close to kilometers. We just need to convert it. They're both measures of length. So we'll start with that 2.30 miles. Then we're going to be multiplying it by some conversion factor. And if you don't know the conversion factor, check your conversion sheet. We're looking for something that relates kilometers to miles. And I see right here, it gives us the conversion that 1 mile is equal to 1.61 kilometers. So remember that these conversion factors can be used in a way to cancel out the units. So when you put these into your dimensional analysis, you can either have the 1 mile on top or the 1 mile on the bottom, depending on how you need your units to cancel. So in this case, we want our miles to be on the bottom because here they're in the top. So we want the miles to cancel to give us kilometers. So we'll put 1 mile on the bottom because the number 1 goes with mile. And then 1.61 kilometers is going to go on the top because those values are equal. So the top and bottom of a conversion factor have to be equal. And when we set it up that way, we can cancel out the units of miles, which will leave us with kilometers, which is what the question is asking us to do. So once you get the units that you're wanting to get in the question, then you know you're done with your setup. So once we have the units of kilometers, we just need to type this into our calculator. And sometimes this is a tricky step, so make sure you can do this. But every number that's in the top of your dimensional analysis, you'll multiply, you'll hit the times button, and any number that's in the bottom, you'll hit divide. So to type this in, we would do 2.3, and then this number 1.61 is in the top, so we'll multiply it. The ones you do not need to do anything because they're not going to affect your answer. So that's all we need to do. I'm going to hit equals, and I get 3.703. The last step you need to do is make sure that your answer has the correct number of significant figures. So the question here says 2.30 miles. That number has 3 significant figures. And we're doing multiplication and division, which means that our answer has to have the same number of significant figures. And this one has 4, so we just need to round it. So we would want 1, 2, 3, so we need to cut off after the 0, and then our rounding rules say that since the 3 is less than 5, we'll keep this at a 0. So it's just going to be 3.70 is our answer. And then the units here are going to be kilometers. The miles canceled out. All right, so that is our first dimensional analysis example. Let's go on to a little more difficult one. D, 87.0 minutes equals how many days? So we want to get to days. We're given minutes. Those are both measures of time, so that's a good sign. So we're just going to start with the number that was given to us. We're going to need some conversion factor that relates minutes to days. I do not know a simple conversion for that, but I do know how many minutes are in an hour. So I'm going to use that as a conversion factor. You're going to go step by step here. And remember that minutes is in the top here, so minutes needs to be in the bottom. And I know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. Okay, so that helps me out because it cancels out minutes. But now I'm at hours, I'm not quite to days. So I need to do another conversion factor and think about if I know the relationship between hours and days. Luckily I do. It's going to be 24 hours, and it needs to go in the bottom to cancel out the hours here, and that's equal to 1 day. Now the hours cancel, and I'm left with the units of days after all the units cancel, which is good because that's what the question's asking me for. So once you get the unit that you're asked to express your answer in, you will stop your dimensional analysis. You are done. You just need to do the calculation now. So we're going to type this into the calculator. Remember, multiply any numbers that are in the top, divide any numbers that are in the bottom. And so since we have ones in the top, so I'll type this in as 87 times 1 times 1. We don't have to type that in because you know it's going to be the same answer. These numbers are in the bottom, so 60 I need to do divided by 60 because it's in the bottom. 24 is also in the bottom, so also I need to divide this number. Divide by 24 equals this number here, 0.0604 blah blah blah. And before I write this number down, I need to figure out how many sig figs I'm allowed to have in my answer. This number here, 87, has 3 significant figures, which means our answer has to have 3 significant figures. So the zeros here to begin with are not significant, they're just placeholders. So we would count 1, 2, 3, we'd cut it off after the 4, and since 1 is less than 5, we'll leave it at a 4. So our answer here is going to be 0.0604, and that has units of days because that was what we were left with after our units canceled. Okay, so that's the final answer. Get one more example here. A trickier example that uses 2 units in the question. Okay, so this one, 24.5 miles per hour equals how many kilometers per minute. So this one's a little bit tricky, but we're going to start it out the same way. We're going to start with the number we're given, 24.5. And when we're starting out this problem, the way you can write it to help you is to write this as 24.5 miles per. What this really means is it's 24.5 miles per 1 hour. So we can write it that way with miles on the top and hours on the bottom, and that will help you when you're canceling out your units. Okay, so we're trying to get to kilometers per minute, which is very similar to miles per hour. And in order to get to these units, we need to cancel the units and convert miles to kilometers, and we need to convert hours to minutes, and just try to tackle this 1 unit at a time. Okay, so you have the decision to make if you want to work with the miles to kilometers first or the hours to minutes. It doesn't matter which you do first, the order doesn't matter. You just need to make sure that you convert both of those units. So I'm just going to choose to start with miles since it's on top. So I need to first work on changing miles to kilometers. And in order to do that, you might need your conversion sheet to remind you that 1 mile is equal to 1.61 kilometers. So as I'm using that conversion, I need miles to be on the bottom because here it's in the top, so I need those to cancel. And according to the conversion sheet, it's 1 mile is equal to 1.61 kilometers. So 1.61 kilometers will go on top because top and bottom of the conversion factor have to be equal. And that's good news because we get kilometers out of this after the miles cancel, which is what we want. And we want kilometers in the top, and it is in the top, so that looks good so far. So now that we've converted miles to kilometers, we need to work on changing hours to minutes. Okay, so for this conversion factor, hours is in the bottom here in the question given, and I need that to cancel, so I need hours to go on top in the conversion factor, and then I want to convert that to minutes. And since you know a conversion that converts minutes to hours, you can go ahead and put minutes on the bottom as long as you know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. Okay, so that's our next conversion factor, which cancels hours, leaves us with minutes. And so now we get kilometers on the top, that one's left, and on the bottom we have minutes, which matches the units that it's asking for in the problem. So we actually are done with this setup. All that's left to do now is to do the calculation and then round our answer to the correct number of significant figures. So we're going to type this into the calculator, and we'll start with 24.5. All the numbers in the top you want to multiply. So the 1.61 is in the top. And then the ones you don't have to do anything with. The 60 here is in the bottom, so we need to divide. Bottom numbers you'll divide. We get this number here, and we need to round our answer to 3 sig figs because our number that was given was 3 sig figs. So the 0 is not significant, so it goes 1, 2, 3 sig figs, cut off after the 7, and since 4 is less than 5, we'll leave that 7 as it is. So we get 0.657, and then the units here are kilometers per minute. So you can write it as /minute. So that dimensional analysis problem is just a little bit trickier because you had 2 units in the number that was given, but you'll treat it the same way, set up in a way to cancel your units, and then follow your sig fig rules at the end.